The thunder of hoofbeats against the parched earth stopped abruptly as Willow Garrett stared in disbelief at the weathered sign swinging from a post. Circle Z Ranch. This wasn't right. The stagecoach driver had deposited her trunk, and her carpetbag at the wrong ranch miles from her intended destination before tipping his hat and disappearing in a cloud of dust. Montana Territory, 1883, was proving to be just as unforgiving as she'd been warned. You lost, miss. A deep voice startled her from behind. Willow spun around, coming face to face with a tall man astride a chestnut stallion. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could make out a strong jaw dusted with stubble and eyes the color of a summer storm. I believe I am, she admitted, straightening her travel-worn skirts. I was meant to be delivered to the Fairbanks Ranch. I'm to be the new governess for Mr. Fairbanks' children. The man dismounted with fluid grace that belied his size. Up close, Willow noticed the sun-weathered lines around his eyes and the way his lips quirked up slightly at one corner. Fairbanks Ranch is about 20 miles east of here, he said, removing his hat to reveal dark hair with a slight curl. I'm Cole Zimmerman. This is my land you're standing on. Willow Garrett, she replied, offering her gloved hand. I apologize for the intrusion, Mr. Zimmerman. Is there perhaps another stagecoach that passes through soon? Cole's expression shifted as he glanced at the darkening sky. Not for 3 days, storms coming in too. He studied her for a moment. Looks like you're stuck at the wrong man's ranch, Miss Garrett. A flutter of anxiety passed through her. I'm expected at Fairbanks today. They'll be concerned when I don't arrive. Right mistake, right time, I suppose, Cole said with a hint of a smile. My sister-in-law just had her baby 2 days ago. She could use the help, and I can get word to Fairbanks tomorrow that you've been delayed. Lightning flickered on the horizon, illuminating the vast emptiness surrounding them. Willow had few options. Her parents' deaths had left her with nothing but her education and determination to make her own way. This position with the Fairbanks family was her chance for security. I would be most grateful, Mr. Zimmerman, she said finally. Cole nodded, hefting her trunk onto his shoulder with ease. Call me Cole, formalities don't last long out here, he whistled, and a second horse trotted from behind a stand of cottonwoods. Can you ride, Miss Garrett? Willow, please. And yes, though it's been some time. He secured her belongings to his horse and helped her mount the second one, a gentle mare with intelligent eyes. His hands were calloused but careful as they steadied her, sending an unexpected warmth through her despite the cooling air. Homestead's about 2 miles north, he said, swinging back onto his stallion. Better hold on tight. We're racing that storm. The first raindrops began to fall as they crested a hill, revealing a sprawling ranch nestled in a valley below. A main house built of sturdy logs and stone stood proudly alongside a large barn and several outbuildings. Smoke curled from the chimney, promising warmth within. By the time they reached the covered porch, the rain was coming down in sheets. Cole helped her dismount, his hands lingering at her waist perhaps a moment longer than necessary. Welcome to Circle Z, Willow, he said, his voice nearly lost in a crack of thunder. Not where you intended to be, but where you are nonetheless. Little did she know how those words would come to define everything that followed. The interior of the ranch house was warm and inviting, with polished wooden floors and simple, sturdy furnishings. A woman with kind eyes and a baby in her arms looked up as they entered. Rebecca, we have a guest, Cole announced, helping Willow remove her sodden cloak. Miss Willow Garrett was delivered to the wrong ranch. She's meant to be the new governess at Fairbanks. Rebecca's face brightened. Oh, what wonderful timing. I've been praying for some help. She transferred the sleeping infant to one arm and extended her free hand. Rebecca Zimmerman, that's my husband Thomas out in the barn, and this little one is Elizabeth, though we're calling her Beth. Pleased to meet you, Willow said sincerely. I hope I'm not imposing. Imposing, heavens no. With the new baby, I could use an extra pair of hands, and Cole here could use some civilized company. He's been running this place mostly alone since Thomas and I had the baby. Cole shifted uncomfortably. I'm managing just fine. Rebecca gave him a knowing look. He works from sunup past sundown, hasn't had a proper meal in days, I'd wager. I'll see to the horses, Cole said, clearly eager to escape the conversation. Rebecca can show you where you can freshen up. After he left, Rebecca led Willow to a small but clean bedroom. Don't mind my brother-in-law. He's not one for many words, but you won't find a better man in the territory. He's been very kind, Willow admitted, setting down her carpet bag. I was quite distressed when I realized the stagecoach error. Well, perhaps it wasn't an error but providence, Rebecca said with a smile. The Fairbanks have 3 spoiled children and the last governess lasted barely a month. Here, we just need help with cooking and keeping an eye on Beth while I recover. Willow felt a pang of concern. But I've agreed to the position with the Fairbanks. Of course, and Cole will make sure you get there, but no harm in considering other options while you're here, is there? With that cryptic comment, Rebecca left Willow to change. Later that evening, Willow found herself seated at a large oak table across from Cole, while Thomas gently rocked Beth in a handcrafted cradle nearby. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside was warmth, savory stew, and freshly baked bread. So, Miss Garrett, Thomas began, what brings you all the way to Montana territory? Not many Eastern women choose to come here alone. Please call me Willow, she said. My parents passed last winter influenza. Our small farm in Pennsylvania had to be sold to cover debts. I've been teaching in a one-room schoolhouse, but when I saw the advertisement for a governess position that included room and board, it seemed like an opportunity for a fresh start. Cole studied her with those penetrating gray eyes. That takes courage, or desperation, she replied honestly. Sometimes they look remarkably similar. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair enough. How long have you had this ranch? Willow asked, eager to shift attention away from herself. Going on 7 years now, Cole answered. Our father bought the land, but he died before seeing what it could become. Thomas and I built it up from nearly nothing. It's impressive, she said sincerely. I can see how much work you've put into it. Work never ends on a ranch, Thomas added. Especially with the drought this summer and rustlers growing bolder by the day. Cole shot his brother a warning look. No need to burden our guest with our troubles. I'm not so delicate that I can't hear of challenges, Willow said, though I admit ranching is quite foreign to me. Rebecca returned from checking on the baby. Perhaps Cole could show you around tomorrow, weather permitting. It would do him good to take a short break from work. Cole raised an eyebrow. I don't recall agreeing to that. Consider it payment for the message you'll be sending to Fairbanks, Rebecca countered smoothly. Later, as Willow settled into the narrow bed in the guest room, she found herself listening to the rain against the window and thinking of Cole's weathered hands and quiet strength. There was something about him, a solidity, a certainty that drew her. It was foolish, of course. She would be gone in days, continuing on to the position she had accepted. Still, as sleep claimed her, she wondered what it might be like to belong in a place like this with people like the Zimmermans. With a man like Cole, morning broke clear and bright, the storm having washed the world clean. Willow woke to the sounds of life on a working ranch, the distant lowing of cattle, the whinny of horses, men's voices calling to one another. She dressed quickly in her plainest dress, a sensible navy blue with minimal trim, and pinned her honey-brown hair into a simple knot. In the kitchen, she found Rebecca attempting to prepare breakfast one-handed while Beth fussed in her other arm. Without a word, Willow took over the cooking, allowing the new mother to tend to her child. You're a godsend, Rebecca sighed. I forgot how demanding newborns can be. I'm happy to help, Willow said, efficiently cracking eggs into a bowl. My mother taught me to cook from a young age. Cole entered, his presence immediately filling the room. He'd clearly been working already, his shirt damp with sweat despite the early hour. He stopped short at the sight of Willow at the stove. Good morning, she said, suddenly self-conscious under his gaze. Morning. He filled a cup with coffee and leaned against the counter. I've sent one of the hands to Fairbanks with a message explaining the situation. He should be back by evening with their response. A strange disappointment settled in Willow's chest. Thank you, that's very thoughtful. Least I could do. He hesitated, then added, if you're still interested, I can show you around the ranch after breakfast. Not much to see, but it'll pass the time. Rebecca shot Willow a knowing glance over the baby's head. I'd like that very much, Willow replied. After breakfast, Cole led Willow outside. The air was crisp and clean after the rain, the vast Montana sky a brilliant blue that seemed to go on forever. "It's beautiful," she breathed, taking in the sweep of grassland rising to meet distant mountains. "It is," he agreed, his voice holding a quiet pride. "Different from Pennsylvania, I imagine. Entirely. Our farm was just 50 acres, most of it woodland. This is endless." Cole guided her toward the barn, where several cowboys were preparing for the day's work. They touched their hats respectfully as Cole introduced Willow as their temporary guest. "This here's Eddie, my foreman," Cole said, indicating a leathery-faced man with kind eyes. "Been with us since the beginning." "Pleasure, miss," Eddie said. "Don't believe everything the boss tells you about this place. Half of it's true, and the other half's just what he wishes were true." Cole's laugh surprised Willow, a rich, warm sound that transformed his serious face. "Eddie's the only man brave enough to speak to me that way." "Someone's got to keep you humble," Eddie retorted good-naturedly. As they continued the tour, Cole showed her the corrals where young horses were being trained, the blacksmith's forge, and the bunkhouse where the unmarried hands lived. He explained the workings of the ranch with quiet authority, answering her questions thoughtfully. "How many cattle do you have?" she asked as they walked past a fenced pasture. "About 1,500 head," Cole replied. "Not as many as some of the bigger outfits, but enough to be profitable if the weather cooperates and the market holds." "And if it doesn't?" A shadow crossed his face. "Then we tighten our belts and pray for better days." They paused at the top of a rise overlooking the main pastures. Cole pointed to the eastern horizon. "Fairbanks land starts about 15 miles that way. Their operation is 3 times our size. Ambrose Fairbanks came out here with money from back east, bought up land from struggling homesteaders, built an empire." "You don't sound as though you admire him," Willow observed. Cole was quiet for a moment. "I respect what he's built, but not how he built it, or how he treats those who work for him." Willow felt a flutter of unease. "The advertisement said he has 3 children needing education and supervision." "He does. His wife died 5 years back. The children, well, they've had a succession of governesses, none stay long." "Why not?" Cole turned to face her fully. "Fairbanks expects perfection from his children, his employees, everyone. He doesn't forgive mistakes easily." The warmth of the day seemed to fade slightly. "I see. I'm not trying to frighten you," Cole said, his expression softening. "Just want you to have your eyes open." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind rustling through the tall grass around them. Willow was acutely aware of Cole's presence beside her, solid, reassuring. "Thank you for being honest," she said finally. "I've learned that knowing what you're facing is always better than pleasant illusions." Cole studied her with new respect. "Not everyone feels that way." "My father always said that truth is like good medicine. It might taste bitter, but it heals you faster than sweet lies." A smile tugged at his lips. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was." Willow blinked back unexpected tears. The grief was still fresh, still capable of ambushing her at odd moments. Without a word, Cole offered her a clean handkerchief. His simple kindness nearly undid her composure entirely. "I apologize," she said, dabbing at her eyes. "It's still difficult sometimes." "No apologies needed for missing those you've loved," he said quietly. "That pain means something real was lost." Willow looked up at him, struck by the depth of understanding in his gray eyes. In that moment, something shifted between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits. The spell was broken by a shout from the direction of the ranch house. Thomas was waving to them from the porch. "Looks like we're needed back," Cole said, offering his arm with unexpected formality. "Shall we?" Willow placed her hand in the crook of his elbow, feeling the solid strength beneath his shirt sleeve. "Yes, let's go back." As they walked, she couldn't help wondering if she was heading toward her future at Fairbanks Ranch, or if perhaps the stagecoach driver's mistake had delivered her exactly where she was meant to be all along. Back at the house, Thomas met them with news. "Ryder just came through from Silver Creek. Says there's trouble at the Fairbanks place. Seems the children set fire to the schoolroom after their father hired a new governess just yesterday when you didn't show." Willow's hand flew to her mouth. Good heavens, was anyone hurt? No injuries, but considerable damage, Thomas replied. Word is Fairbanks is furious. The new governess already quit. Cole's expression darkened. Those kids need discipline, not another replacement teacher they can terrorize. What does this mean for me? Willow asked, suddenly uncertain of her position. Thomas glanced at his brother. That's the thing. The rider said Fairbanks was cursing your name, blaming you for not arriving as scheduled. But that's hardly fair. The stagecoach driver made the error, Willow protested. Fairbanks isn't known for his fairness, Cole said grimly. Thomas, have Eddie and the men keep an eye out. If Fairbanks sends anyone here looking for Miss Garrett, I want to know about it. Willow felt a chill despite the warm day. Surely he wouldn't. Ambrose Fairbanks doesn't like to be embarrassed or inconvenienced, Cole interrupted, and he tends to blame others for his problems. But I still need the position, Willow said, practicality overcoming her apprehension. I can explain what happened and assure him of my competence. The brothers exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Let's wait for my messenger to return, Cole suggested. Get the official word before making any decisions. Willow nodded, though anxiety churned in her stomach. She had exactly $28 to her name, not enough to return east, and certainly not enough to establish herself elsewhere in the territory. Rebecca called them in for the midday meal, and conversation turned to more pleasant topics. Cole spoke of plans to expand the herd the following spring, while Thomas described improvements he wanted to make to the barn. Willow found herself drawn into their discussions, offering suggestions from her own childhood on a farm. You know quite a bit about animal husbandry for a schoolteacher, Cole observed. My father believed in practical education, Willow explained. He said book learning was important, but knowing how to birth a calf or repair a harness would feed you when poetry wouldn't. Smart man, Thomas agreed. Too many Eastern folks come out here with grand ideas and no practical skills. Is that why you came west? Willow asked Cole. For practical opportunity, a shadow crossed his face. Partly. Our father brought us after our mother died. He had dreams of building something lasting for his sons. He paused. And there were complications back in Chicago I was eager to leave behind. The way he said it discouraged further questions, but Willow found herself curious about what complications would drive a man to the wilderness. After the meal, Rebecca asked for Willow's help with Beth while the men returned to their work. The afternoon passed pleasantly as Willow assisted with household tasks and took turns holding the baby, allowing Rebecca much-needed rest. You're good with her, Rebecca observed as Willow gently rocked Beth. Have you been around infants before? I helped deliver Mrs. Peterson's twins back home, Willow said, and I often watch the younger children after school hours. You'd make a fine mother someday, Rebecca said, then smiled at Willow's blush. I've seen how my brother-in-law looks at you. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Willow protested, though her heart skipped. We've only just met. Some things don't need time, just recognition, Rebecca replied cryptically. Cole's been alone too long. After Catherine, he closed himself off. Catherine, Willow couldn't help asking. Rebecca sighed. His fiancée back in Chicago. She left him for a banker's son 2 weeks before their wedding. Cole never speaks of it, but it's why he throws himself into the ranch, working from dawn to dusk. He doesn't let anyone close anymore. Willow absorbed this information silently, thinking of the pain Cole must have endured. Betrayal by someone you loved enough to marry would leave deep scars. I'm leaving for Fairbanks Ranch soon, she reminded Rebecca gently. Whatever impressions we've made on each other will fade quickly enough. Rebecca gave her a knowing look but said nothing more. As evening approached, Willow found herself watching the road for the returning messenger, both anxious and oddly reluctant to receive word from Fairbanks. The sun was beginning to set when a rider appeared, pushing his horse hard. Cole met him in the yard, his expression growing more troubled as the man spoke. Willow watched from the porch, her hands clasped tightly together. When Cole finally approached her, his face was grim. I have news, but you won't like it. Tell me, she said, bracing herself. Fairbanks refuses to honor the contract, says you breached it by not arriving as scheduled. He's already telegraphed back east for another governess. Willow felt as though the ground had dropped away beneath her feet. But that's That's not fair. I had no control over the stagecoach route. There's more, Cole said, his voice gentle but firm. He's demanding payment for damages to his property, claiming they wouldn't have occurred if you'd arrived on time. That's preposterous, Willow exclaimed. How can he possibly hold me responsible for what his children did? Cole's jaw tightened. Fairbanks has the ear of the county judge and deep pockets. Willow sank onto a porch chair, her mind racing. What am I to do now? I have no position, limited funds, and apparently legal troubles. Cole sat beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. You have options, Willow. First, you're welcome to stay here until you decide your next steps. No one's going to force you to face Fairbanks before you're ready. She looked at him gratefully. That's very kind, but I can't impose indefinitely. It's not an imposition. Rebecca needs help and… He hesitated, and I find I enjoy your company. The simple admission warmed her more than it should have. Second, Cole continued, there's need for a teacher in Silver Creek. The town's growing and families are demanding education for their children. It doesn't pay much, but it would be a position suited to your skills. Hope flickered in Willow's heart. A real school? They've built a small schoolhouse but have had trouble keeping teachers. Most young women who come west are looking for husbands, not careers. I would need to apply immediately, Willow said, her mind already working through the practicalities, and find lodging in town. The widow Jenkins rents rooms, Cole suggested. Reasonable rates, and she's a good soul. Willow nodded, grateful for his help but aware of a strange reluctance to leave the Circle Z ranch. In just 2 days, she'd begun to feel at home here in a way she hadn't anywhere since her parents died. Thank you, Cole. I don't know why you're being so kind to a stranger who literally arrived on your doorstep, but I'm grateful. His eyes met hers, serious and intent. Maybe you weren't meant to go to Fairbanks at all. Maybe that stagecoach driver made exactly the right mistake. The words hung between them, laden with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. The next morning, Cole announced he would take Willow to Silver Creek to inquire about the teaching position. The small town was 15 miles from the ranch, a 2-hour ride at a comfortable pace. Are you sure you can spare the time? Willow asked as they prepared to depart. I know how busy the ranch keeps you. The cattle will survive without me for a day, he said, helping her mount a gentle mare named Daisy. Besides, I need to order supplies and check on a few things in town. Rebecca hugged Willow goodbye, whispering, Don't be too quick to leave us. Some opportunities only come once. The ride to Silver Creek was pleasant, with Cole pointing out landmarks and sharing stories of the early days of the ranch. Willow found herself laughing at his descriptions of their misadventures as young, inexperienced ranchers. You should have seen Thomas the first time he tried to break a wild Mustang, Cole chuckled. Landed flat on his back in 10 seconds, then stood up and announced he preferred cattle anyway. And you, were you a natural horseman? She asked. A smile played at his lips. Not exactly, but I was too stubborn to admit defeat. That horse and I battled for 3 days before we reached an understanding. Stubbornness can be a virtue in the right circumstances, Willow observed. It's kept me going through some hard times, Cole admitted, though some might call it pure mule-headedness. Silver Creek came into view as they crested a hill, a small but growing settlement nestled in a valley along the creek that gave it its name. A main street lined with wooden buildings formed the heart of the town, with scattered houses spreading outward. A white clapboard church spire rose above the other structures, and nearby stood a smaller building that Willow guessed was the schoolhouse. As they rode down the main street, Willow noticed people greeting Cole with respect and genuine warmth. He clearly had a good reputation in the community. The town council meets in the back room of Jenkins' General Store, Cole explained, reining in front of a large wooden building. Mayor Thompson should be there now. Inside the store, a portly man with impressive whiskers looked up from a ledger. His face brightened at the sight of Cole. Zimmerman, good to see you. What brings you to town? Mayor Thompson, I'd like to introduce Miss Willow Garrett, Cole said formally. She's an experienced teacher from Pennsylvania interested in the school position. Mayor Thompson's bushy eyebrows rose as he assessed Willow. Is that so? Well now, that is fortuitous timing. The council just received another complaint from the Millers about their children running wild with no education. Willow stepped forward confidently. I've taught children of all ages for the past 3 years, sir. I'm well versed in mathematics, literature, history, and natural sciences. And what brings you all the way to Montana territory, Miss Garrett? Willow explained her circumstances truthfully, though she omitted the specific trouble with Fairbanks, saying only that the position she'd originally accepted had fallen through. The mayor tugged at his whiskers thoughtfully. We can offer $30 a month, plus a small room attached to the schoolhouse. Term would start in 2 weeks. It was less than Fairbanks had offered, but it came without the complications of living in his household. More importantly, it would be her own classroom where she could teach as she saw fit. I would be most grateful for the opportunity, sir, Willow said sincerely. Well then, Thompson beamed. Let's call an emergency meeting of the school board this afternoon, just a formality, mind you. We've been desperate for a qualified teacher. As they left the store, Willow could hardly contain her excitement. I can't believe it happened so easily. In 2 weeks I'll have my own school. Cole's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm glad it's working out for you. They spent the next hour visiting the schoolhouse, a simple one-room structure with rows of desks, a teacher's desk at the front, and a small attached living quarters with a bed, stove, and wash stand. It's perfect, Willow said, running her hand along the chalkboard. Simple but functional. You'll be happy here? Cole asked, watching her closely. I think I could be, she said honestly. Teaching brings me joy, and having my own classroom has been a dream. They visited the widow Jenkins next, who readily agreed to rent Willow a room for the 2 weeks before school started. It'll be nice having another woman around, the older woman said kindly. Too many rough men in this town and not enough civilizing influence. By mid-afternoon, the school board had met and officially offered Willow the position. As they rode back toward the Circle Z, she felt a mix of elation and unexpected sadness. I can't thank you enough for your help, she told Cole. If that stagecoach hadn't delivered me to the wrong ranch, I might still be facing Fairbanks' anger with no position and no prospects. Right mistake, right time, Cole said softly, echoing his words from their first meeting. Though I admit I'm finding it harder to be glad you'll be leaving soon. The simple admission made Willow's heart flutter. I've grown fond of the ranch too, she said carefully, and everyone there. Cole reined in his horse, turning to face her directly. Willow, I'm not much for fancy words or courtship. Life out here doesn't allow for such things. But I want you to know that in just these few days, you've made me think about possibilities I'd closed off long ago. Willow's breath caught. Cole, I'm not asking for anything, he continued quickly. You have your position in Silver Creek, and I respect that. I just wanted you to know that the door at Circle Z will always be open to you, for visits or... He trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. Willow didn't know how to respond. Her practical nature warned against making hasty decisions based on fleeting emotions, but something deeper recognized the rarity of what was growing between them. I'd like to visit, she said finally, and perhaps you could come to town occasionally. A slow smile spread across Cole's face. I suspect I'll find more reasons to visit Silver Creek in the coming months. They continued toward the ranch, the air between them charged with unspoken potential. As they approached the final ridge before the Circle Z came into view, Cole suddenly raised his hand, signaling Willow to stop. Something's wrong, he said tersely, his eyes fixed on the ranch below. Willow followed his gaze and saw several unfamiliar horses tied at the hitching post in front of the house. Even from a distance, she could tell the atmosphere was tense. Stay here, Cole ordered, his voice hardening. If anything happens, ride straight back to Silver Creek and find Sheriff Miller. Cole, who are those men? Willow asked, fear creeping into her voice. I recognize Fairbanks' foreman, he said grimly, and those are his hired guns with him. Before Willow could protest, Cole had spurred his horse down the slope, approaching his home with caution but determination. Ignoring his instructions to stay behind, Willow followed at a distance, heart pounding. As they neared the house, she could see Thomas standing on the porch, arms crossed, facing off against 4 men. Rebecca was visible through the window, holding Beth protectively. Fairbanks send you Jenkins? Cole called out as he dismounted smoothly. A tall, thin man with a weathered face turned slowly. Zimmerman, just having a friendly chat with your brother about a certain governess who seems to have gone missing. Miss Garrett isn't missing, Cole replied evenly. She's right here and she's under my protection. Jenkins' cold eyes shifted to Willow, who had stopped her horse a short distance away. Mr. Fairbanks wants a word with you, miss. Seems you cost him quite a bit in damages. That's absurd, Willow said, finding her voice despite her fear. I had no control over the stagecoach route, and I certainly can't be held responsible for children I've never even met misbehaving. Jenkins shrugged. Not for me to judge. Mr. Fairbanks just wants you to come explain yourself. She's not going anywhere with you, Cole stated flatly, his hand resting near his holstered pistol. The tension in the yard was palpable. Willow noticed Eddie and several ranch hands had positioned themselves strategically around the property, ready to support Cole if needed. Don't be foolish, Zimmerman, Jenkins warned. This isn't your fight. You came onto my land threatening my family and a guest under my roof, Cole replied. That makes it very much my fight. Thomas stepped forward. You'd best ride out now, Jenkins. Tell Fairbanks if he has a legitimate complaint, he can take it to the territorial court in Helena. Otherwise, stay off Circle Z land. Jenkins assessed the situation outnumbered by determined men defending their home and apparently decided it wasn't worth pushing further. This isn't over, he said, motioning to his men to mount up. Fairbanks doesn't forget when he's been crossed. Neither do I, Cole replied evenly. As the riders departed, Willow felt her legs trembling. The confrontation had been brief but intense, highlighting the precarious position she was in. Cole was at her side immediately. Are you all right? I think so, she said, her voice shaky. I never imagined Mr. Fairbanks would go to such lengths. Men like Fairbanks don't like being denied what they want, Cole said grimly, helping her down from her horse. And they particularly don't like being made to look foolish. Inside the house, Rebecca was visibly shaken but trying to maintain calm for the baby's sake. Those men just rode up demanding to know where you were, she told Willow. When Thomas said you weren't here, they called him a liar and threatened to search the house. I'm so sorry to have brought this trouble to your door, Willow said, distressed. Nonsense, Thomas replied firmly. Fairbanks has been looking for an excuse to cause problems for years. He's still angry we wouldn't sell him our water rights. Cole paced the room, his expression dark. This complicates things. If Fairbanks is willing to send men here, he might try to interfere with your position in Silver Creek. The thought sent a chill through Willow. Surely the town wouldn't allow him such influence. Fairbanks has money and connections, Cole explained, and Silver Creek is still growing, still establishing itself. Many businesses depend on trade with the larger ranches. What should I do? Willow asked, looking from one Zimmerman to another. Cole stopped pacing and faced her directly. Stay here until school starts. We can protect you better at the ranch than you'd be in town. When it's time, I'll personally make sure you're safely established in Silver Creek. The offer was tempting 2 more weeks in Cole's company, safe from Fairbanks' intimidation, but Willow hesitated. I don't want to put your family at risk, she said, and I don't want to appear to be hiding. That only makes me look guilty of whatever Fairbanks is accusing me of. She's right, Thomas said reluctantly. Running never solves these kinds of problems. Cole's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then we face it head on. Tomorrow we ride to Silver Creek together. You'll meet with the school board again and explain the situation. If they stand behind you publicly, Fairbanks will have a harder time causing trouble. And if they don't, Willow asked quietly. Then we find another solution, Cole said with such conviction that Willow couldn't help but believe him. I promise you, Willow, you won't face this alone. That night, Willow found it hard to sleep. The confrontation with Fairbanks' men had unsettled her deeply, but even more unsettling were her growing feelings for Cole Zimmerman. In just a few days, he had become a steady presence. She found herself relying on his quiet strength, his unwavering support. It was foolish to develop such attachments so quickly. She had known him less than a week. Yet there was something between them that felt old and familiar, as if they'd known each other much longer. A soft knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. She wrapped a shawl around her nightdress and opened the door a crack to find Cole standing in the hallway, still fully dressed. "I apologize for disturbing you," he said quietly. "I saw the light under your door and thought you might still be awake." "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "May I speak with you a moment?" Willow hesitated, aware of the impropriety, then nodded. "Let me get my wrap. I'll meet you on the porch." Minutes later, she joined Cole outside. The night was clear, with countless stars speckling the vast Montana sky. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine and sage. "It's beautiful here at night," she said, pulling her shawl tighter. "It is," Cole agreed. "When I first came west, I'd never seen so many stars. Made me realize how small our troubles really are in the grand scheme." "Is that why you wanted to talk? To remind me my troubles are small?" There was a teasing note in her voice. Cole smiled briefly, then grew serious again. "No. I wanted to apologize for putting you in danger. If I hadn't brought you here—" "Stop," Willow interrupted. "You've done nothing but help me since the moment we met. You can't blame yourself for Fairbanks' behavior. Still, I feel responsible for your safety. And today, when I saw those men at the ranch," he exhaled slowly, "I realized how much the thought of you being harmed affected me." Willow's heart quickened at the raw honesty in his voice. "Cole, I know it's too soon," he continued. "I know you have plans that don't include a struggling rancher, but I had to tell you that in these few days, you've woken something in me I thought was dead and buried." Willow found herself moving closer to him, drawn by the emotion in his words. "I feel it too," she whispered. "This connection between us, it doesn't make logical sense, but it's there." Cole's hand reached for hers, his touch gentle but certain. "Logic has little to do with matters of the heart." They stood in silence for a moment, hands joined, the vast Montana night surrounding them. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Cole said finally, "know that you have a place here if you want it. Not just as Rebecca's helper or as a teacher for the children we hope to have in the district someday, but," he took a breath, "but as someone who belongs with me." It was the closest thing to a declaration of love Willow had ever received, and far more meaningful than flowery words could have been. "Thank you for saying that," she said softly. "I need time to sort through everything that's happening, but knowing how you feel, it matters to me." "More than I can express," Cole nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Time is something I can give. Just promise me you'll consider all your options before deciding." "I promise," she whispered. When he released her hand, she felt the loss of his warmth immediately. Yet something new had been established between them, a possibility, a future glimpsed but not yet claimed. As she returned to her room, Willow realized that for the first time since her parents' deaths, she was thinking beyond mere survival. She was thinking about happiness, about belonging. About love. The next morning brought clear skies and a renewed sense of purpose. Willow dressed carefully in her best dress, a modest blue cotton with white collar and cuffs, and pinned her hair in a style that she hoped conveyed both competence and respectability. Cole was waiting for her in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. His eyes warmed appreciatively as she entered. "You look ready to face a room full of school board members," he said. "I hope so," she replied, accepting the cup of coffee he offered. "I've been thinking about what to say. I want to be forthright about the situation with Fairbanks without appearing to be running from responsibility." "Just be yourself," Cole advised. "Your character speaks for itself." They set out for Silver Creek after breakfast, riding side by side along the now familiar trail. This time, 2 ranch hands accompanied them, a precaution Cole insisted upon after the previous day's confrontation. Silver Creek was bustling with morning activity when they arrived. Cole led the way to Mayor Thompson's office, located above the bank. The mayor was clearly surprised to see them so soon. "Miss Garrett, Mr. Zimmerman, didn't expect you back for a couple of weeks. We've had a development I thought you should know about," Cole said, his tone respectful but direct. "Ambrose Fairbanks sent men to my ranch yesterday, looking for Miss Garrett. The encounter was less than friendly." Thompson's bushy eyebrows rose. "Fairbanks is causing trouble for you, Miss Garrett, whatever for." Willow explained the situation, fully the stagecoach mistake, her brief delay at Circle Z, and Fairbanks' unreasonable reaction. "He's claiming I'm responsible for damages caused by his children after I failed to arrive," she concluded. It's an absurd accusation, but Mr. Fairbanks seems determined to pursue it. The mayor tugged at his whiskers thoughtfully. Troubling, very troubling. Fairbanks has considerable influence in the territory. Are you saying you're withdrawing the teaching position? Willow asked directly, her heart sinking. No, no, Thompson hastened to assure her. The position is yours, but I'd be remiss not to acknowledge that Fairbanks could make things difficult for the town if he chooses. Mayor Thompson, Cole said, his voice quiet but firm. Silver Creek has been talking about independence from the big ranchers for years, about building a community that stands on its own principles. This seems like an opportunity to demonstrate those principles. The mayor looked uncomfortable but nodded. You make a fair point, Zimmerman. The school board voted unanimously to hire Miss Garrett, and that decision stands. He turned to Willow. However, Miss Garrett, you should be aware that your position might come with additional challenges. I'm not afraid of challenges, Mayor, Willow replied with more confidence than she felt. I believe in education, and I'll do my best for the children of Silver Creek, regardless of Mr. Fairbanks' interference. Thompson seemed impressed by her resolve. Well said. Now I suggest we hold a town meeting this evening to introduce you properly, show a united front, so to speak. An excellent idea, Cole agreed. In the meantime, I'd like to speak with Sheriff Miller. As they left the mayor's office, Willow touched Cole's arm. Do you really think a town meeting will help? It might, he said. Fairbanks relies on intimidation and working in the shadows. Bringing everything into the open could change the dynamics. They found Sheriff Miller at his office, a grizzled veteran of the frontier with a reputation for fairness. He listened to their story with a neutral expression. Can't arrest a man for sending his hands to ask questions, the sheriff said finally. But I can let Fairbanks know that intimidation won't be tolerated in my jurisdiction. And Miss Garrett, he added, you come to me directly if there's any trouble once you're living in town. That's a promise. By late afternoon, word had spread through Silver Creek about the evening meeting. Cole and Willow shared a simple meal at the town's only restaurant, where several townspeople stopped by their table to introduce themselves. Word travels fast, Willow observed as another family moved away after welcoming her to Silver Creek. Small towns, Cole said with a half smile, no secrets but plenty of support if you're accepted. And if you're not, his expression sobered. Then life can be very difficult indeed. But you don't need to worry about that. They already like you. The town hall, a simple building that served multiple community functions, was surprisingly full when they arrived for the meeting. Willow recognized faces from their earlier visit and from the restaurant, but many were strangers, curious about the new teacher and the unusual circumstances of her arrival. Mayor Thompson called the meeting to order and introduced Willow formally to the community. She stood nervously, aware of all eyes upon her. Thank you for this warm welcome, she began, her teacher's voice carrying clearly through the room. I'm honored to have been selected as your school teacher, and I promise to dedicate myself to providing the best education possible for your children. She paused, then decided honesty was the best approach. Some of you may have heard that there's been a misunderstanding with Mr. Fairbanks regarding a position I was originally hired for. I want to assure you all that I fulfilled every obligation on my part. Unfortunately, a stagecoach driver's error led to complications. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A man toward the back stood up. Fairbanks thinks he owns half the territory. About time someone stood up to him. Several people nodded in agreement, but Willow noticed others looking uncomfortable, glancing nervously at their neighbors. Another man rose better dressed than most, likely a merchant. While I sympathize with Miss Garrett's situation, we must consider the practical implications. Fairbanks Ranch does substantial business with shops in town if he decides to take his business elsewhere. So we should let him bully a young woman because he might spend his money elsewhere. This came from a woman in the front row. What kind of community does that make us? The debate continued, growing heated at times. Willow stood quietly, appreciating Cole's solid presence beside her as opinions flew back and forth. She noticed the division wasn't as simple as standing with her or with Fairbanks. It reflected deeper tensions about the town's identity and future. Finally, Sheriff Miller stood up, commanding immediate attention. "Folks, I've heard enough. This town operates under law, not intimidation. Miss Garrett has broken no laws and has been hired fair and square by our duly appointed school board. She will teach our children, and I will personally ensure her safety. If Fairbanks has a legitimate grievance, he can present it through proper legal channels." His decisive statement seemed to settle the matter. Mayor Thompson quickly moved to adjourn the meeting, announcing that school would commence as planned in 2 weeks' time. As people filed out, many stopped to welcome Willow personally. An older woman introduced herself as Mrs. Peterson, head of the Ladies' Aid Society. "We'll be organizing a welcome gathering for you next week," she said warmly. "And please let us know if you need anything for your living quarters. We want you to feel at home here." The genuine kindness brought tears to Willow's eyes. "Thank you, that means more than I can express." When the hall had emptied except for Cole, Willow, and a few town officials, Mayor Thompson approached them. "Well, I believe that went as well as could be expected," he said, looking relieved. "Miss Garrett, if you're still comfortable proceeding with the position after all this, we're pleased to have you." "I am," Willow confirmed. "Thank you for standing by me." As they prepared to ride back to Circle Z, Sheriff Miller pulled Cole aside for a private word. Willow couldn't hear what was said, but she noted the grim set of Cole's jaw when he returned to her. "Is everything all right?" she asked as they mounted their horses. "Miller's received word that Fairbanks is considering legal action," Cole replied. "Civil suit for breach of contract and damages." Willow's stomach clenched. "Can he do that? He can try. But Miller thinks it's mostly bluster Fairbanks testing how far he can push." The ride back to the ranch was quieter, each lost in their own thoughts. The setting sun cast long shadows across the landscape, transforming the familiar trail into something more mysterious. "What happens now?" Willow finally asked as the ranch came into view. Cole considered for a moment. "You have 2 weeks before school starts. We use that time to get your classroom ready, help you settle into town, introduce you to more families with school-aged children. And Fairbanks, we wait and see. If he pursues legal action, we'll face it. If he tries intimidation again, we'll stand firm." Cole's voice softened. "Whatever comes, Willow, you're not alone in this." The simple reassurance warmed her heart. In the short time she'd known Cole Zimmerman, he had become a steady anchor in her suddenly tumultuous life. Back at the ranch, they shared the events of the day with Thomas and Rebecca, who were relieved the town had shown support for Willow. "This calls for a celebration," Rebecca declared, producing a bottle of blackberry wine she'd been saving for a special occasion. As they sat together on the porch after dinner, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky, Willow was struck by how much her life had changed in less than a week. From uncertainty and fear upon realizing she'd been delivered to the wrong ranch, to finding both professional opportunity and unexpected personal connections. Cole sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. In the dim lantern light, his face appeared softer, the habitual sternness melted away. "Penny for your thoughts," he said quietly. Willow smiled. "I was just thinking about how quickly life can change. A week ago, I was on that stagecoach, anxious about meeting Mr. Fairbanks and taking charge of his children. Now here I am, about to teach an entire town's worth of children, and somehow in the middle of a range dispute I barely understand." "Regrets?" Cole asked, his voice carefully neutral. She turned to look directly at him. "Not one. Even with all the complications, I believe I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." The week that followed took on a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Each morning, Willow would help Rebecca with household tasks and spend time with baby Beth. In the afternoons, Cole would take her to Silver Creek to prepare her classroom and meet with families of her future students. The schoolhouse, simple as it was, became a project they worked on together. Cole repaired broken desks and built bookshelves, while Willow organized the few textbooks available and created teaching materials. "You're good at this," Cole observed one afternoon as he watched her carefully printing letters of the alphabet on large cards. "Teaching, I mean." "It's not just a job for you, is it?" Willow looked up, her eyes bright with passion. "No, it's much more than that. Education transformed my own life. My parents were simple farmers, but they valued learning. My father taught himself to read from a Bible and an almanac. He was determined his daughter would have more opportunities. He would be proud of you, Cole said softly. I hope so. She traced a finger along the edge of the card she'd been working on. Sometimes I wonder if I'm honoring their memory properly. They sacrificed so much for me. By becoming the kind of person who helps others, I'd say that's the best way to honor them. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, understanding, appreciation, and something deeper that neither was quite ready to name. The days fell into a comfortable pattern, but beneath the surface, tension remained. There had been no further direct confrontation with Fairbanks or his men, but rumors circulated that he was indeed preparing legal action. Sheriff Miller sent word that papers had been filed in the territorial court, though the details weren't yet clear. I wish he would just state his demands plainly, Willow said one evening as they rode back to the ranch. This waiting and wondering is worse than facing a clear challenge. That's his strategy, Cole explained. Keep you off balance, make you anxious enough that you might make a mistake or give in just to end the uncertainty. Then he doesn't know me very well, Willow replied with unexpected fierceness. I don't surrender easily. Cole's smile was equal parts admiration and affection. I've noticed that about you. As the days passed, Willow found herself increasingly torn. Her excitement about the teaching position remained strong, but the thought of leaving Circle Z, leaving Cole, grew more difficult to contemplate. They hadn't spoken again about the feelings growing between them, but every shared glance, every brush of hands as they worked side by side, confirmed what she already knew in her heart. 3 days before she was to move permanently to Silver Creek, Willow was working alone in the schoolhouse, organizing her desk when the door opened. Expecting Cole, who had gone to the general store for supplies, she looked up with a smile that quickly faded. Ambrose Fairbanks himself stood in the doorway, a tall, imposing figure in an expensive suit that looked out of place in the frontier town. His cold eyes assessed her with calculated interest. Miss Garrett, I presume, he said, removing his hat. I believe we have matters to discuss. Willow's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. Mr. Fairbanks, I wasn't aware you visited Silver Creek often. I don't generally, but you've created quite a situation that requires my personal attention. He stepped further into the room, looking around with thinly veiled disdain. So this is where you've chosen to ply your trade instead of the comfortable position I offered. The position I was prevented from taking due to circumstances beyond my control, Willow corrected firmly. Fairbanks' lips tightened. A convenient explanation. The fact remains, Miss Garrett, that you signed a contract which you failed to honor. My children were left without proper supervision, resulting in significant property damage. With all due respect, sir, your children's behavior is hardly my responsibility when I wasn't even present. The stagecoach driver made an error in delivery. Yet you chose to remain at the Zimmerman ranch rather than making immediate efforts to reach your intended destination, he countered smoothly. An interesting choice. Willow stood straighter. It was storming heavily, as you may recall. Mr. Zimmerman offered shelter and promised to send word to you, which he did promptly the next morning. Ah yes, Zimmerman. Fairbanks' tone conveyed volumes of disdain. I understand you've become quite friendly with him. The insinuation made Willow's cheeks burn, but she refused to be baited. Mr. Zimmerman has been kind enough to help me secure alternative employment after your unfair dismissal. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to complete before school begins. Fairbanks didn't move. I've filed suit against you, Miss Garrett. Breach of contract, negligence, and damages amounting to $300. The sum more than she would earn in nearly a year of teaching made Willow's blood run cold, but she maintained her composure. That's absurd, and you know it. No court would find me liable for damages caused by your children's misbehavior. Perhaps not, he conceded with a cold smile. But can you afford the legal fees to defend yourself, the multiple trips to Helena for court appearances? The potential damage to your reputation during a protracted legal battle, the calculated cruelty of his strategy was breathtaking. He knew perfectly well she couldn't afford to fight him, even if she would ultimately win. "What do you want, Mr. Fairbanks?" she asked directly. "Simply what's due to me," he replied. "Payment for damages and a public apology acknowledging your failure to fulfill your contractual obligations. And if I refuse, then I will pursue every legal avenue available to me, regardless of how long it takes or how costly it becomes." "For you, that is. For me, it's a trivial expense." Before Willow could respond, the door opened again. Cole stood there, taking in the scene with a quick glance, his expression darkening as he recognized Fairbanks. "Is everything all right, Willow?" he asked, his eyes never leaving Fairbanks. "Mr. Zimmerman," Fairbanks said smoothly, "how convenient. I was just explaining to Miss Garrett the legal consequences of her actions." Cole stepped into the room, positioning himself beside Willow. "Is that what you call intimidation these days?" "Merely a factual discussion of the situation," Fairbanks replied. "Though I'm not surprised you'd interpret it differently. Your family has always had difficulty understanding basic property rights." Cole's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "If you have legitimate legal concerns, address them through your lawyer. Otherwise, I suggest you leave Miss Garrett alone to prepare for her teaching duties." Fairbanks replaced his hat deliberately. "Very well, I'll take my leave." "But Miss Garrett," he added, his eyes cold, "consider my offer carefully. You have until the end of the week to decide whether to settle or face the consequences." After he departed, Willow sank into her chair, trembling slightly. $300, she whispered. He might as well have demanded the moon. Cole knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "What exactly did he say?" She recounted the conversation, watching Cole's expression grow grimmer with each detail. "He can't win such a case," Cole said when she finished. "No judge would hold you responsible. But he doesn't need to win," Willow replied. "He only needs to drag it out until I can't afford to continue fighting. He as much as admitted that's his strategy." Cole stood and paced the small classroom. "There has to be a way to counter this. Short of finding $300 I don't have, I'm not sure there is." "What if you had it?" Cole asked suddenly. "The money," Willow looked up in surprise. "What do you mean? I mean, what if you could pay his demand? Would that end it?" "I suppose so, but I can provide it," Cole said firmly. "Consider it a loan if your pride requires it, though I'd rather call it a gift." Willow stared at him in shock. "Cole, I couldn't possibly accept such an amount from you. The ranch is doing well enough," he finished for her. "Not as well as Fairbanks would have everyone believe, but well enough that I can help you without hardship." "But why would you do that?" she asked softly, though in her heart she already knew. Cole came to her then, taking her hands again and drawing her to her feet. "Because in the short time I've known you, Willow Garrett, you've become more important to me than money or pride or anything else I can name. Because seeing you frightened and threatened makes me want to move heaven and earth to protect you, even while I admire your courage in standing up for yourself." Her heart raced at his words, at the intensity in his eyes. "Cole, I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I think I started falling the moment you stood on my land, dusty from travel but determined to make your way no matter what obstacles appeared, and every day since has only deepened that feeling." Tears sprang to Willow's eyes. "I've been fighting the same feelings," she admitted. "Telling myself it was too soon, that I barely knew you, that I had responsibilities and plans that didn't include." She hesitated. "That didn't include falling in love with a stubborn rancher," he suggested with a small smile. "Yes," she laughed softly through her tears. "Though I've been spectacularly unsuccessful at convincing my heart." Cole's hand gently cupped her cheek. "Then maybe it's time to stop fighting it." When his lips met hers, Willow felt as though everything in her life had been leading to this moment, every hardship, every loss, every decision that had brought her to Montana territory and to the wrong ranch on a stormy evening. The kiss was gentle yet certain, a promise and a question all at once. When they finally parted, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I don't want to rush you, Willow. I know you value your independence and your teaching. I'm not asking you to give up anything." "What are you asking?" she whispered. "Just that you let me help you now, and that you consider a future where we face whatever comes together, whether that's Fairbanks or winter storms or anything else life throws our way." The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within her. This wasn't the impulsive declaration of a man swept away by emotion, but the carefully considered offer of someone who knew his own mind and heart. "I'll accept your help," she said finally, "but not as a gift or even a loan, as an investment in our future together. Because I'm falling in love with you too, Cole Zimmerman, and I want that future you're describing." The joy that transformed his face was answer enough, but he sealed it with another kiss, this one deeper, filled with promise and belonging. They were interrupted by the schoolhouse door opening once more. Sheriff Miller stood there, looking mildly embarrassed at what he'd walked in on. "Pardon the intrusion," he said, clearing his throat, "but I saw Fairbanks leaving town in a hurry and wanted to make sure everything was all right." Cole kept his arm around Willow's waist as they faced the sheriff. "Fairbanks came to threaten Miss Garrett with a lawsuit unless she pays him $300 for supposed damages." Miller's weathered face creased with concern. "That's so? Well, I've got some news that might interest you both. Just received a telegraph from the county seat. Seems Fairbanks' suit has already been dismissed by Judge Hollister. Said it was, and I quote, a frivolous attempt to intimidate through legal channels." Willow's knees nearly buckled with relief. Dismissed, but how did the judge know? "Apparently, Fairbanks has tried similar tactics before," Miller explained. "Judge Hollister has seen enough of his methods to recognize the pattern. Plus," he added with a slight smile, "I may have sent a detailed account of the situation ahead of Fairbanks' filing." Cole extended his hand to the sheriff. "Thank you, Miller. That's the best news we could have hoped for." "Just doing my job," Miller replied, shaking Cole's hand firmly. "This territory needs good people willing to stand their ground against bullies, no matter how wealthy those bullies might be." His eyes twinkled as he looked between them. "And it seems you two have found more than just an ally in each other." Willow blushed but didn't deny it. "We have indeed, Sheriff." After Miller left, promising to spread word of the lawsuit's dismissal throughout town, Cole and Willow walked hand in hand down Silver Creek's Main Street. Several townspeople nodded or called greetings, their acceptance of the couple evident in their warm smiles. "What now?" Willow asked as they reached their horses tied outside the general store. "Fairbanks won't be happy about the dismissal." "Now we move forward," Cole replied. "You teach, I ranch, and we figure out the rest together. Fairbanks may make more trouble, or he may decide you're not worth the effort. Either way, we'll handle it." The certainty in his voice gave Willow a sense of peace she hadn't felt since her parents' deaths. For so long, she had carried her burdens alone, making decisions based solely on survival. Now, unexpectedly, she had found not just safety but partnership. "Together," she agreed, squeezing his hand. "I like the sound of that." The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Word of Judge Hollister's dismissal of Fairbanks' lawsuit spread quickly through Silver Creek and beyond, effectively neutralizing his immediate threat. While Willow didn't delude herself that he would forget the perceived slight entirely, the imminent danger had passed. On her last evening at Circle Z, Rebecca arranged a special dinner, complete with apple pie, a rare treat that required hoarding sugar and spices for weeks. "I'll miss having you here," Rebecca said as they cleared the dishes together afterward. "You've become like family in such a short time." "I'll visit often," Willow promised. "It's only a 2-hour ride after all." Rebecca smiled knowingly. "I suspect you'll be back more permanently before too long." Willow blushed, but didn't disagree. She and Cole hadn't discussed marriage explicitly, but the direction of their relationship was clear to both of them. They had agreed to proceed with her teaching position as planned. She needed to establish herself professionally, and he respected that need. But they also agreed to court properly, with frequent visits between the ranch and town. After dinner, Cole asked Willow to walk with him to the ridge overlooking the ranch, the same spot where they had first seen Fairbanks' men. This time, the view was peaceful, the ranch buildings bathed in the golden light of sunset. "I wanted to give you something," Cole said, reaching into his pocket. "A token to remember me by when you're busy with your students." He handed her a small wooden box, beautifully crafted with a simple design carved into the lid. Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. "Cole, it's beautiful," she breathed, opening the locket to find it empty. "But you didn't need to, I wanted to," he interrupted gently. And I left the inside empty intentionally. I thought perhaps someday we might fill it with something meaningful to us both. Willow understood the unspoken promise in his words. Will you help me put it on? Cole's fingers brushed against the nape of her neck as he fastened the chain, sending a pleasant shiver down her spine. When he finished, she turned to face him. I have something for you too, she said. Though it's not nearly as beautiful. From her pocket, she withdrew a small, worn book of poetry, one of the few personal possessions she had brought with her from Pennsylvania. My father gave this to me when I left for teaching college, she explained. It's been a source of comfort during difficult times. I've marked a passage that reminds me of you of us. Cole took the book carefully, opening it to where a pressed wildflower marked the page. His eyes moved over the lines she had indicated, and a slow smile spread across his face. Two roads diverged in a wood, he read aloud, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. He looked up at her. Frost? Yes, you know poetry, she asked, pleasantly surprised. I read more than most would guess, he admitted with a slight smile. Long winters provide ample opportunity. Keep it with you, she said. And remember that sometimes the unexpected path leads to the greatest happiness, like being delivered to the wrong ranch, he suggested, drawing her closer. Exactly like that, she agreed as his lips met hers. The following morning, Cole accompanied Willow to Silver Creek, her trunk and belongings loaded onto a wagon. The small room attached to the schoolhouse seemed even smaller after the spaciousness of Circle Z, but Willow was determined to make it home. Cole helped her arrange the furniture and unpack her few possessions, working together in companionable silence. When everything was settled, they stood in the doorway of what would be her home for the coming school year. It's not much, she said apologetically. It's a beginning, he corrected, not an ending. And besides, he added with a smile, I'm quite certain I'll be building an extension to the main house at Circle Z in the coming months, something with more bookshelves than the average ranch house requires. The implication wasn't lost on Willow. Is that a promise, Mr. Zimmerman? It is indeed, Miss Garrett. His arms encircled her waist. Along with many others, I intend to keep. They were interrupted by excited voices outside, children coming to meet their new teacher before classes officially began the next day. Cole stepped back with a rueful smile. Duty calls, he said. I'll see you on Sunday for dinner at the ranch. I wouldn't miss it, she promised. As Cole rode away and Willow turned to greet her future students, her hand went to the locket at her throat. The wrong stagecoach, the wrong ranch, the right mistake at exactly the right time, all of it had led her here, to this moment, to this future unfolding before her. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Willow Garrett was exactly where she wanted to be. 1 year later, the schoolhouse was festooned with wildflowers and ribbons, transformed from a place of learning to one of celebration. Children darted about in their Sunday best, helping to arrange benches for the guests who would soon arrive. In the small room that had been her home for the past year, Willow stood before a mirror while Rebecca adjusted the simple veil attached to her hair. The wedding dress, cream-colored silk with modest lace trim, had been a gift from the women of Silver Creek, each contributing what they could to ensure their beloved teacher had a proper gown for her marriage to Cole Zimmerman. You look beautiful, Rebecca said, stepping back to admire her work. Cole won't be able to take his eyes off you. Willow touched the silver locket at her throat, now containing miniature portraits of her parents on one side and Cole on the other. I can hardly believe this day is finally here. I can, Rebecca laughed. Thomas and I have been taking bets on how long Cole would wait before making it official. Though I must say, a full year of courtship showed remarkable restraint on my brother-in-law's part. A knock at the door announced Thomas, who would be escorting Willow down the makeshift aisle. Ladies, the guests are seated, and my brother is looking more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Willow laughed, the sound bright with happiness. We shouldn't keep him waiting then. The past year had brought many changes. Willow had indeed proven herself as Silver Creek's teacher, earning the respect and affection of both students and parents. Cole had expanded Circle Z Tickets operations, adding a small horse breeding program that was already gaining recognition throughout the territory. And Ambrose Fairbanks, after one final attempt at intimidation that was firmly rebuffed by the entire town, had seemingly accepted defeat, turning his attention to other matters. Through it all, Willow and Cole's relationship had deepened and strengthened. Their different responsibilities meant they couldn't be together daily, but the time apart only made their reunion sweeter. Cole never missed a Sunday dinner at Widow Jenkins' boarding house, where Willow had moved after her first month in the schoolhouse, and Willow spent every weekend at Circle Z. Now, as Thomas offered his arm and led her toward the schoolhouse's main room, Willow's heart swelled with gratitude for the chain of events that had brought her to this moment. The small space was filled to capacity. It seemed the entire population of Silver Creek and many from surrounding homesteads had come to witness the union of their teacher and the respected rancher. Mayor Thompson, who had been ordained years earlier, stood ready to perform the ceremony. But Willow saw only Cole, waiting for her at the front of the room, his usually weathered face transformed by an expression of such pure joy that tears sprang to her eyes. He had traded his everyday ranch clothes for a new suit, his dark hair neatly combed, but his eyes, those storm-gray eyes that had first captured her attention, were the same, filled with love and certainty. When Thomas placed her hand in Cole's, Willow felt as though everything in her life had been leading to this moment, every decision, every hardship, every joy. "Dearly beloved," Mayor Thompson began, his voice carrying through the hushed room. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Cole Zimmerman and Willow Garrett in holy matrimony." The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When they exchanged vows, promises to love, honor, and cherish through all of life's challenges, Willow knew they were more than just traditional words. They were speaking from experience, having already weathered storms together and emerged stronger. "By the power vested in me," Thompson concluded, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. Zimmerman, you may kiss your bride." Cole's kiss was gentle, but filled with promise, the same promise Willow had sensed in him from the beginning. A promise of steadfastness, of partnership, of a love that would endure. The celebration afterwards spilled out onto the schoolyard, with tables laden with food contributed by every family in attendance. There was music from a local fiddle player dancing, and enough well wishes to last a lifetime. As evening approached, Cole found Willow sitting with a group of her students, listening to their excited chatter about the coming school year. "May I borrow my wife for a moment?" he asked, still seeming to marvel at the word wife. The children giggled and dispersed, leaving Cole and Willow alone beneath a cottonwood tree. "Are you ready to go home?" he asked, taking her hands in his. "The wagon is packed whenever you are." Home, Circle Z Ranch. The house where Cole had indeed built an extension with extra bookshelves, just as he'd promised. The place where she would wake up tomorrow morning as Mrs. Zimmerman, beginning their life together properly. "I am," she said, meaning far more than just readiness to depart the celebration. As they said their goodbyes and climbed into the wagon that would take them to Circle Z, Willow leaned against Cole's shoulder, content in a way she had never imagined possible when she first arrived in Montana territory. "Happy?" he asked, his arms secure around her waist as he guided the horses onto the familiar trail. "Completely," she assured him, "though I was thinking about how differently things might have turned out if that stagecoach driver had known his route properly." Cole laughed, the sound warm in the gathering twilight. "I've never been so grateful for someone else's mistake." "Right mistake, right time," Willow quoted, remembering his words from their first meeting. "The best mistake I never knew I needed," Cole agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Welcome home, Mrs. Zimmerman." As Circle Z Ranch appeared on the horizon, outlined against the setting sun, Willow knew with absolute certainty that she had found where she belonged, not just a place, but a person, a partnership, a future rich with possibility. The stagecoach driver's error had been the first step on an unexpected path, leading her not to the position she thought she wanted, but to the life she was meant to have. And as Cole had said that very first day, when she stood confused and uncertain at the entrance to his ranch, right mistake, right time indeed. 5 years later, The autumn sun cast long shadows across the Circle Z ranch as Willow Zimmerman stood on the porch, watching a small figure on horseback following carefully behind Cole in the distant pasture. Even from this distance, she could see the determined set of 4-year-old James's shoulders as he concentrated on guiding his pony exactly as his father had taught him. "He's getting better every day," Rebecca observed, joining Willow on the porch with baby Sarah cradled in her arms. "Cole says he's a natural horseman, like his father," Willow agreed with a proud smile, "though he also insists on a story every night, so perhaps he's inherited a bit of his mother as well." The past 5 years had brought changes to Circle Z Ranch. The main house had been expanded again to accommodate not just Cole and Willow's growing family. James had been joined by 2-year-old Emma, but also the school that now operated on the property 3 days a week. After 2 successful years as Silver Creek's teacher, Willow had proposed a compromise that would allow her to continue teaching while living full-time at the ranch. Children from outlying homesteads now came to Circle Z for lessons, while those in town still attended the Silver Creek schoolhouse, taught by Willow's former student and now assistant, Miss Abigail Parker. The arrangement had proven beneficial for everyone involved. Ranch children who previously had limited access to education now received regular instruction, and Willow was able to balance her passion for teaching with her life as Cole's wife and the mother of their children. Cole had initially worried that converting part of the barn into a schoolroom would interfere with ranch operations, but his concerns had proven unfounded. In fact, several of his hands had begun attending evening classes to improve their reading and arithmetic skills, something that had improved the ranch's record-keeping considerably. "Mama, look," James called, guiding his pony into a careful turn without Cole's direct supervision. "Well done." Willow called back, waving proudly. "Remember to keep your back straight." The sight of her son and husband together always filled Willow with a profound sense of gratitude. Cole had proven to be an exceptional father, patient, loving, and dedicated to teaching their children the values he held dear: honesty, hard work, and respect for the land and all who worked it. Their marriage had its challenges, as all marriages do. The drought 2 summers ago had tested everyone's resilience, and last winter's unusually heavy snows had isolated the ranch for nearly 3 weeks. But through it all, they had faced each obstacle together, their partnership growing stronger with each challenge overcome. "Are you ready for tonight's celebration?" Rebecca asked, shifting baby Sarah to her other arm. "Thomas says half the county will be here." "The decorations are finished and the food is nearly ready," Willow confirmed, "though I still think Cole is making too much of the occasion." Rebecca laughed. 5 years of marriage is certainly worth celebrating, and you know Cole any excuse to gather friends and neighbors for good food and music. It was true. Over the years, Cole had gradually shed some of his natural reserve. He still preferred action to words and rarely sought the spotlight, but he had developed a reputation for hospitality that drew people to Circle Z for more than just business. As evening approached, guests began to arrive, families from nearby homesteads, hands from neighboring ranches, merchants, and townspeople from Silver Creek. The yard was soon filled with laughter, conversation, and the delicious smells of a feast being prepared over open fires. Willow spotted familiar faces everywhere she looked. Sheriff Miller, now retired but still respected throughout the territory. Mayor Thompson and his wife, who had become dear friends. Even Eddie, Cole's former foreman who now ran his own small spread, had returned for the celebration with his wife and young son. What touched Willow most, however, was seeing her former students, some now nearly grown, others with families of their own, returning to share in the celebration. Many had traveled considerable distances, proof of the impact she had made on their lives. As twilight deepened, lanterns were lit around the yard, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Cole found Willow amidst the crowd, slipping an arm around her waist. "Happy, Mrs. Zimmerman?" he asked, echoing the question he had asked on their wedding day. "Completely," she assured him, leaning into his embrace, "though I'm still not sure I deserve such a grand celebration." Cole turned her to face him, his expression serious despite the festive surroundings. Willow, do you have any idea how much joy you've brought to this ranch? To me. 5 years ago, I was a man who worked from sunrise to sunset because I had nothing else in my life that mattered. Now, because of you, Circle Z is not just a successful ranch but a true home. Tears threatened at his heartfelt words. In their daily life, Cole was more likely to show his love through actions than eloquent speeches. Besides, he continued with a smile, it's not every day a man gets to celebrate finding the love of his life because of a stagecoach driver's mistake. Willow laughed, remembering that fateful day. Right mistake, right time, she quoted. The phrase had become something of a family motto over the years, a reminder that life's unexpected turns could lead to the greatest blessings. The best mistake ever made, Cole agreed. Bending to kiss her softly, they were interrupted by a small voice at their knees. Papa, Uncle Thomas says it's time for the dancing. Cole scooped up their daughter Emma, her blonde curls so like willows bouncing with excitement. Then we better not keep everyone waiting, should we, Princess? The three of them joined the crowd gathering in the cleared area of the yard, where a small band of local musicians was tuning up. Cole handed Emma to Rebecca, then turned to Willow with a formal bow. May I have this dance, Mrs. Zimmerman? As they moved together to the music, Willow was transported back to their first dance together at a town social in Silver Creek, when their courtship was still new and each touch felt like a discovery. The familiarity they had developed since then hadn't diminished the magic, but had deepened it, infusing each moment with the richness of shared history and mutual understanding. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Cole led Willow away from the crowd to a quiet spot near the corral, the same place where he had first shown her the ranch on that tour so many years ago. I have something for you, he said, producing a small box from his pocket. Inside was a charm to add to her locket, a tiny silver book, exquisitely crafted. For the teacher who changed everything, Cole explained, not just for our children or your students, but for me. Willow opened her locket, where the portraits of her parents and Cole had been joined over the years by miniature silhouettes of James and Emma. It's perfect, she said, watching as Cole carefully attached the charm to the chain. I was thinking, he said as they stood together under the star-filled Montana sky, about how different my life would be if that stagecoach driver had known his route properly. Mine too, Willow agreed. I'd probably still be trying to manage the Fairbanks children, assuming I lasted longer than my predecessors. And I'd still be the solitary rancher, convinced that Catherine's betrayal meant I was better off alone. Willow touched his face gently. We would have missed so much. That's what I keep thinking, Cole admitted. How easily we might have missed each other entirely. It makes me grateful for wrong turns and mistakes and all the imperfect things that somehow led us to the perfect outcome. As they rejoined the celebration, Willow found herself surveying all they had built together, not just the expanded ranch house or the thriving cattle operation or even the school, but the community they had fostered. Circle Z had become a gathering place, a center for education and celebration, a home not just for their immediate family but for all who needed one. And it had all begun with a simple mistake, a stagecoach driver who deposited her at the wrong ranch on a stormy evening. In the grand scheme of things, it had been such a small error, yet it had altered the course of so many lives. Later that night, with the celebration concluded and their children sleeping soundly, Willow and Cole stood on the porch of their home, arms wrapped around each other as they gazed at the endless Montana stars. Thank you, Cole said softly, for staying that first day. For giving us a chance. Thank you for saying right mistake, right time instead of just sending me on my way, Willow replied, for seeing possibility where others might have seen only inconvenience. As they turned to enter their home, hands clasped and hearts full, Willow reflected that perhaps there were no wrong turns after all, only different paths to where we're meant to be. And sometimes, the most unexpected route leads to the greatest happiness of all.